Let's talk about Sue Novak for a moment. Do you know who Sue Novak is?
Yes,
Okay, who is Sue Novak?
Sue Novak was the warden at Columbia Correctional Institution at the time of the escape in 2020, and she is the plaintiff in this case.
Great. So, do you know how Sue Novak became the warden at Columbia Correctional Institution?
Nope,
So she was the warden that when you came there, is that right?
that's correct.
Okay. During your time as warden, did you ever have any interactions with Sue Novak?
During my time as secretary, sir?
Yeah, thanks for
Yes,
that correction. Yeah.
no problem. Yes, yes, I did.
Okay, what were those interactions?
Well, in November of 2019, there was a serious assault of an officer at Columbia Correctional Institute. And It was a serious physical assault. We had a couple of meetings in my office about what had taken place at during that assault. One of our officers was seriously injured. Um, Warden Novak and her deputy warden came down to headquarters and we met in the conference room. We talked about security measures that we could um, implement in order to support her and um, things that she wanted to do to enhance security. And we supported everything that she was asking for in order to deal with the climate issues, deal with the staff issues that arose from that incident. And that was in early November 2019. Besides having gone there previously and met her on a tour of Columbia Correctional and regular routine types of interactions that you might have with people on your staff.
Okay. So let's focus in on the safety meeting that you had with her. About when did that take place?
Oh, that was in November of 2019 after the officer was assaulted. We had some questions about um, she wanted to lock down the facility, which we agreed with her to do. Um, Although there had been a previous lockdown, as I recall, because of some shakedowns or searches that they wanted to do at Columbia Correctional shortly after my arrival. Um, because locking down people in their cells um, is a pretty serious measure to take, especially if it's going to be long term. But because of the circumstances that existed at that institution in order to maintain the safety and security of the staff and the persons in our care, we agreed with her recommendation to lock down the facility for a number of weeks, well into December of 2019. And there were some physical improvements that she wanted to make um, in response to what had taken place with the officer who was assaulted.
Okay. So I mean, as far as I understood, and correct me if I'm wrong, there was two categories of improvements that she wanted, which were number one, lockdown, ongoing for at least a month, and then number two, she wanted some other improvements directly related to that officer.
Uh, yeah, physical improvement. The officer was in a location, and then um, they wanted to make some physical improvements to the area where the officer was assaulted to improve the sight lines, I believe.
Okay, I think I understand that then. And so let's focus on this lockdown. Um, Is there a policy for lockdowns at the Department of Corrections?
I'm going to object to relevance, Judge. This is going far beyond the allegations contained in the complaint.
Mr. Cross, I don't see why we're doing this. This is going to be a very long hearing. This seems to be very far afield.
He's got a lot going on, but we got to tie all this together, Judge, because he's made these statements about how he's going to terminate this employee the next chance he can, and it's all related to the lockdown. So
I would object to that commentary. That is not what the secretary said. And again, we're just far afield here. This is just not relevant.
Was there a lockdown involved in this, in the escape? Can we talk about the lockdown involved in the escape, please?
Who are you asking that question to, Judge?
Mr. Cross, I'm asking you to just
So
move
it's
on.
not
I don't
the escape.
understand that this is relevant.
Great. I will direct you just one second here. $29. All right, so there's a report from Friday, January 24th of 2020. This is about a month after what we're talking about. And demand one on this document says, demand one, fire or discipline warden, Novak, or other staff. And it says, these are the notes from our meeting we had following our march on the Department of Corrections. We will send copies of these to hundreds of incarcerated people today via correctional links. The meeting attendees included Secretary Carr, his assistant Shannon Carpenter, and head of Division of Adult Institutions, MACDF SAE, and other DOCs on the DOC side. Myself, Rachel Kincaid from Moses, and Linda Rose from Soul Sessions. The meeting was supposed to be 30 minutes, but it went on for more than an hour, making Secretary
Is there an exhibit here that we're supposed to be looking at? Did you submit this as an exhibit?
This
Judge, I was
exhibit,
actually going to object based on
29,
that.
Judge. It just said Exhibit 29.
Okay,
hasn't been admitted into
look at the
evidence at
exhibit.
this
I'm
point.
sorry, Mr. Mullenbuck, what are you saying?
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to talk over you. That what he's reading from has not been admitted into evidence. There's been no foundation. We have no idea what he's reading from. So I'd object to the question, ask that it be struck. And if
It's
he wants
his
to
exhibit.
admit it, that's fine.
It's just his
Okay,
exhibit.
stop.
proposed
both of you.
exhibit.
Stop, both of you. I'm asking for the witness to be given this exhibit. We will look at the exhibit. We can mark it. So you're saying this is your exhibit 29? Is that correct, Mr. Cross?
Yes, it's the respondent's 29, Judge.
The respondent's 29?
Yes.
Okay.
So I guess
One second. I need to find this.
Great, but my suggestion is I can withdraw the pending question, his with objection notwithstanding, and I'll try to ask a new question here based on this exhibit.
1 second. The exhibit's not in the record. Until we do that, I am not going to let you ask a question about it. So,
Judge, if I can explain, and Mr. Cross, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I think this is relevant. The exhibit that Mr. Cross is trying to use right now is an exhibit that we withdrew. It is no longer part of our package. It's not, I believe it's part of his exhibits, but it is no longer part of our package.
okay. Well, I am trying to open your exhibits because for some reason I have
was
the
told
wrong
the only
set.
thing
After
that
all this morning, all these
taken out of
problems
there
we had.
just some hours ago was the videos. So there's a lot
1
of
second,
moving
please.
parts here right during this hearing, Judge.
1 second, please. Did you send those documents now to Mr. Cross, Mr.
Judge,
Mullenbuck?
that's what we discussed earlier today when I mentioned that there were about 10 exhibits that were removed from our previous submission. I did not send them to Mr. Cross because he had indicated during the hearing that he would just get them through the Wisconsin box link. We can send them to him, and we have every intent to do that. We just haven't done that yet, and the reason for that is Mr. Cross's email won't accept such a large document. If he can provide us with a manner to have us send that to him, I'm happy to do it. Just for your knowledge, it is, I believe it's his Exhibit 8, so he can certainly use it from his exhibits, but it's no longer one of our exhibits. I just wanted to clarify that.
Okay, one second. Let's find it in
You
the
know,
complaints
this is why
exhibit.
there's a statute that says you have to have your witness and exhibit list ready 10 days ahead of time, so that we're not wasting time in the hearing with switch-o, change-o, now you see them, now you don't.
I understood that the only change that was going to be made in the respondents exhibits was to redact from that particular exhibits the names, and no other changes were going to be made, Mr. Mullenbach. So I
Well,
have to agree
Judge,
with Mr. Cross on that issue.
if I can respond to that, we didn't add any exhibits, we just removed because the initial concern was the length of the exhibit. So that's what we tried to do. In addition to the audio recordings and the video recordings, we took away any other documents that we felt weren't necessarily needed at the hearing. So I believe in total, we eliminated 10 exhibits. Now, again, there should be no surprise there because we initially disclosed more exhibits than we're actually going to use. So I'm not sure what the prejudice here would be.
Well,
But
the prejudice is that you didn't inform me and Mr. Cross of that issue before the hearing and then make sure that he got a copy of it because he declined getting this sent to him by Y-Box link because he said, well, I've got the exhibits. I can just, I know the names and I can just use the initials myself. I don't need to get it again. So that was the agreement, not that you were going to start changing the exhibits and removing things so he wouldn't have an understanding of what you were actually proposing.
Judge,
So we are
that's,
now on
that's
exhibit
not my
8.
recollection of the agreement.
Judge, I just
That
want
is
to add
the
here, it's
agreement.
fortunate that we recorded prior to when we actually started this hearing so that we can compare Mr. Mullenbach's earlier statements about what he withdrew from this document, which my understanding was that it was just videos and what he's just said here now. So
Okay,
that's
one
fortunate
second,
for
please.
everybody
I'm
to have
going
that
back
opportunity.
to marking my exhibit so we can make sure we don't have a problem later that I don't know what's been marked. So I'm marking your complainant's 8. That's what he's saying is the document you're actually wanting to look at. Is that correct, Mr. Cross, or are you saying
No,
it's
Judge, this is a document from a party opponent. And it's not our document that we're introducing. It's their document that they
well, they don't
provided
have
to
it
us.
anymore, and I want to know if the one that we
I
have for
understand. Just one
you
second here,
is
please,
in
Judge.
there.
I will examine our witness list and beyond that.
He says it's complaints exhibit 8.
That's correct, Judge. Exhibit
Okay,
8.
so we're complaints exhibit 8. Give me a chance and I will mark it so we have this in our record. All right, I have this as complaints exhibit 8. It starts on 22 with the complainant's front page that gives me the name of the witness, or gives me the name of the exhibit, and that it is exhibit 8. And then we will go on from there. Okay, let's start sharing this document. Okay, one second. All right. All right. I now have complaints exhibit 8 up. And you said that that is the complaints exhibit 8. You have it as 200124 prison forum blog.
Yes, Judge.
And we are going to what page of this document? Do you want
First
to look
page for foundation purposes.
at? Okay, go ahead then.
All right. Sir, do you see this document?
Yes,
Have you seen this document before?
yes,
Okay. And there's a picture on this document, is that right?
yes,
That's a picture of you, right?
Yes.
Also, Magda Fesai.
Makta Fesahaya.
Appreciate
Yes.
that. Who's the third person in that picture?
Shannon Carpenter.
Who is she to you?
She was my assistant deputy secretary.
Okay. And does this describe, did you attend a meeting on January 22nd?
I did.
Okay. Does this document accurately describe what happened at that meeting?
Not necessarily.
Okay. So now it says these are notes from the meeting that we had following our march on the Department of Corrections. Did I read that part right?
Yes.
Okay. What march on the Department of Corrections is she talking about?
It's
I
a,
objection. We haven't determined even who wrote this blog. There's no foundation as far as that's concerned. We have no idea who the author is here even.
Okay. Let's go down there for 1 second, Judge, if we can.
Where are you? Where do you want to go? What page?
I'll ask it a different way. Do you recall at this meeting whether or not there was any demand made to you to fire Warden Novak?
yes.
Okay. Do you recall if the meeting was supposed to be 30 minutes?
I believe that's all it was scheduled for.
Did it go on for more than an hour?
I don't know if it went on for more than an hour, but it went beyond 30 minutes.
Were you late for your next meeting?
I don't recall.
Judge, can you scroll down one page, please? Okay, here you see it says demand number 1, fire or discipline Warden Novak and other staff. Did I read that right?
Yes.
Was that demand made to you?
Yes.
Okay. Secretary Carr said that he meets with Warden Novak regularly and had a meeting with her recently. Did I read that right?
Yes.
Is that what you told them?
Yes.
Okay. And what meeting were you referring to there?
I was referring to meetings relative to the incident that I previously described that had occurred in November.
Was it
Um,
meetings or just one meeting, as you said before?
No, I mean, there were meetings, there were some in person, some teleconferences. We didn't really use a whole lot of Zoom then because the pandemic had not started yet, but there had been some, teleconferences and, I mean, we do what we can to try to make it convenient to meet with our folks, rather than have them drive from prisons that are long distances away just to have a, half-hour conversation.
Great. With that in mind, please describe how you met with Warden Novak regularly.
Well, when I say regularly, I mean, I didn't say regularly. I mean, he described it. That's why I mean that, what's written there is not entirely accurate. He may have said regularly, and I don't recall saying regularly, but I did meet with Warden Novak, especially. I met with her more as in her capacity as a warden at CCI than I did with any other wardens at that time because of the incident that took place up in Columbia Correctional in November.
Okay. Is that what that says here or something else?
No, it doesn't say that, but I'm just trying to describe to you. I thought what you were trying to get at is how often did I really meet with her, and that's what I'm trying to convey to you.
Correct.
Okay, 1 second. We're having a problem here. So I think this goes back to the original objection of Mr. Mullenbach. So Mr. Carr, do you know who wrote this document to the best of your
No.
knowledge? Do you know where it comes from? Is it part of the Department of Corrections documents?
No.
So where is this generated from to the best of your knowledge?
A prison advocacy group.
Okay, would they appear at this meeting?
Yes.
Okay, so you think it's outside person or group that would have been attended the meeting and then they wrote this document?
Correct.
And
So are you adopting what they wrote in this document as true from your perspective?
Not all of it.
Okay, so with that understanding, Mr. Cross, please don't continue to act as though this is something he wrote and that these are his words. Ask your questions knowing that that's not what he's agreeing to. Go
Right,
ahead.
but that didn't happen, Judge, because what happened was I asked him, Secretary Carr said that he meets with Warden Novak regularly and had a meeting with her recently. And then I said, did I read that right? And then I asked him if that was a true statement. And then he said it was a true statement. So then, based on that answer to that question, we didn't ask, I didn't, whether or not he wrote that. He already admitted that it was true. So then we went and I asked him how it was true. So that has
I
not
want
happened.
to
that
be
we have
clear exactly what this document is. So he's now discussed with us what he meant by regularly. Do you have anything to add about your understanding of regularly, Mr. Carr?
No.
Okay, let's continue, please.
Okay. So Judge, if we can just go up one page there, we'll get that part out of the way. I thought we had that clear. So now you see here it says these are notes from the meeting we had on our march in the DOC, right? We read that before?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And then it said the meeting attendees included Secretary Carr. That's you, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And then it also said that you were supposed to be 30 minutes and it went on for more than an hour, and you said all those were true facts, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So it's, and as this document says here, do you dispute that these are notes from the meeting made by participants in the meeting?
Judge, I'm going to object at this point. Attorney Cross is attempting improper impeachment by referring to a document that hasn't been admitted into evidence.
Are you offering this document?
Well, Judge, once again, it's a document put into it's an exhibit of a party opponent. So I know
That's
they
our
can't switch
document.
or change
They've
and
withdrawn
play
it,
the shell
and
game
they're not
on
going
us.
to use it.
But this is a document of a party opponent. So for them to object is outrageous. No more so when they pretended that we didn't subpoena them. And they did the switcheroo change-o game with that. And elsewhere, as
I
they tried to
don't feel
do today.
comfortable with this document, Mr. Cross, because I don't know what it is.
It's notes
I
from
don't
a
know who
meeting
wrote
that
this. I don't understand this.
It's notes from a
our
meeting with the
on file.
secretary.
Who is our meeting? Who is we? Who is this group? I have no idea what this is.
Judge, if I could just interject too, this is not a document of a party opponent. This is not a DOC document. We haven't even established who drafted this document at this point in time. So I'm objecting based on that.
It's a document of a party opponent because they put it on their exhibit list.
No, that's not. No, that doesn't make it a document of a party opponent. I just don't like the way the question is going because the secretary did not write this, and he's reading this. Secretary Carr, have you read this document before?
I have read it, but again, I didn't author it and I don't know who did. And some of it is accurate and some of it isn't.
And then he can point out what's not accurate and what is accurate, because that's what we're trying to go through is to get that his statement on what happened and what didn't. So if he thinks
so my
something's
question-
not correct,
okay,
he's
fine.
absolutely able to answer that.
Okay, fine. To the extent that he's reading it, but I caution Secretary Carr to really read the statement. Don't just answer quickly. Read the statement because you don't have it in front of you. And you need to make sure, since we know that this wasn't written by DOC or by you, that this is the position of another organization. And you need to make sure that all parts, it says it was 30 minutes, it says it was more than an hour, it says that you were late for your next meeting. When he says this is true or not, you have to tell us if all those parts are true, or if you're telling us some part of it is true or whatever. I just need to really make sure I understand your testimony, that you're really giving me the testimony that you that's accurate, as opposed to just trying to be amenable and just saying yes or no quickly without really considering what the statement says, because there are multiple parts to a lot of these questions, and I need to know if you're agreeing to all parts of it. Okay?
Yes, ma'am. I
So
understand.
I'm going to allow Mr. Cross to continue on that basis, and Go ahead, please.
If I could just
Thank you,
interject,
Ray, for my
if I
question.
could just put an objection on the record, please. Again, the objection is, I don't think this document's been authenticated. There's been no foundation laid for this document. It hasn't been admitted into evidence for those very reasons. So again, I would just object at this point in time, unless Attorney Cross can do those things, I would object to the use of this document at this point.
I'm going to allow the document because I think it'll be easier for Secretary Cross to read these statements because he can see them than have Mr. Cross say them verbally where he can't maybe understand all the parts of the question that Mr. Cross is giving him. This way, Mr. Cross is going to refer to a specific statement. Secretary Cross will be able to look at this statement and to be able to carefully determine if the different parts of the statement are accurate or not. It's a lot more difficult if Mr. Cross is saying this statement with it, unless we just say it's a compound statement. But so we're just going to do that. So go ahead, Mr. Cross.
Sure. Secretary Carr, are you answering my questions in order to be amenable?
Objective,
No.
vague, and form a question.
Are you trying to be a cooperative witness, Mr. Secretary Carr, Mr. Carr?
Yes.
Okay, so
Great.
let's move on.
So let's go here, and it says that you say that you don't believe that Secretary Novak broke any rules or did anything fireable. Did I read that right?
I don't see it on the
It's on the
screen.
next page.
Okay, it's
there,
not on
Joe.
this page. I'm moving it back down to
Thank
that
you.
part of the
Demand more.
document, which is
Again.
page 24 of this document. Do you see this highlighted red part?
Yes.
Second sentence.
Did I read that part right?
Make sure you've read it before you answer.
Yeah, I read it.
Okay. Is that a true statement? Did you say that?
I don't know if I phrased it exactly the way that it's written there.
Okay. What was your meaning?
My meaning is that I was standing behind Warden Novak, and I was not, I wouldn't even entertain firing or disciplining Warden Novak because she didn't do anything that deserved that.
Okay. Why did the participants at that meeting think that Warden Novak should be fired, if you know?
I believe they believe that as the leader of Columbia Correctional, that she was responsible for a number of issues that they had concerns about, ranging from healthcare and to the lock-in or the lockdown that occurred after the incident in November of 2019.
Okay, and what were their concerns about the lockdown?
They believe,
Speculation.
yeah, I don't know.
Well,
They
did they
tell
tell
you?
you? Sir, did they tell you what their concerns were?
I don't recall if they identified any explicit concerns other than that the lockdown had gone on too long and it needed to end.
Okay. Did they explain why it had gone on too long?
Not that I can recall.
Okay. Now, did you, what comments, if any, did you make on the lockdown at that time? Or I should say their concerns about the lockdown at that time.
Okay, independently, Secretary Carr, without looking at this document, the question is what comments did you make, if any, that you recall about the lockdown?
I don't recall making any comments specifically about the lockdown. That was 3 years ago.
Okay. did you recall any other comments that you made to this group about lockdowns at that time?
Not that I can recall,
How about Warden Novak? Did you make any comments to them about Warden Novak?
other than that I stood behind her.
Okay. And did they ask you to discipline Warden Novak in any way?
Well, I believe we previously discussed that, where their number one demand was that I fire or discipline Warden Novak, and my response was, she's done nothing that I should even consider that for.
Okay. And did you tell this group that you would fire people who break the rules?
I said I would not hesitate to discipline or fire anybody who broke the rules or engaged in misconduct.
Okay,
That's my responsibility as the Secretary of the Department of Corrections.
Thank you, sir. Judge, can you go to the third page, please?
This would be page 25 of this exhibit.
Thank you. And it says under potential next steps, unless incarcerated people tell us to. You see that there? Yes. Perfect. Do you see that, sir?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And we will not back down from the demand that Warden Novak will be fired. Did I read that part right?
That's correct.
Okay. And did they back down from their demand that Warden Novak be fired?
Nope.
Okay. And then it says on the last line, or second to last sentence, if we continue to make those things public, we can hold Carr to his word that he will fire people who break the rules. Did I read that right?
You see this?
Yeah, I'm looking at it right now, Your Honor.
Again, I'm going to object to this. I mean, he can confirm whether or not that's what the author of this blog wrote, which again, we don't even know who that is, but that certainly doesn't mean that he's adopting that as being true. So I would just object based on that.
And you got that objection. My direction to Mr. Carr was to make sure he read any, statement that Mr. Cross was referring to, and make sure if he was going to agree to it, that he agreed to all parts of it, or if he was going to say that he didn't, he would let us know what parts. So if we continue to make these things public, we can hold Carr to his word that he will fire people who break rules. So I'm not sure what the question is, because that's about them, not about Secretary Carr. What's the question, Mr. Cross?
Well, it's been a few minutes since I asked it, but the question is does this accurately reflect your statements to this group?
I don't think that's not the part that you just had him look at. And he just told you about the one part that we know he did say he had some statements about. So unless there's some other statements, we're not going to have him just say, because this document's not coming in. I'm not letting this document come in. There is no foundation for it. I would just let you use it to ask questions. That's it.
Okay, great.
So do you have any other questions?
I sure do.
for
I
him?
sure do.
So do you want to continue looking at this document, or are we done?
There's no reason for him to see the document then, if it's not coming in.
Okay.
I'll just ask some questions from it, no problem. So,
1 second, we're stopping the sharing.
great.
Okay.
All right.